Welcome to the Cool Fireman Podcast, a virtual firehouse kitchen table with Matt, Adam, Brian, Doug, and Freddie, where they discuss everything that matters in today's fire service. Now let's get to the show.
Baseball season. We're coming up on October.
You know what?
The Braves going to make it.
We did not do the recap with Preston.
We will.
We didn't.
Well, we have time. The season's not even over yet.
Yeah, we need to do that.
Because he wants to talk about the highlights. I think he got his pick right. That and Matt, you got yours right because y'all both said that your teams were going to stink.
Well, yeah. I mean, that was easy. That was easy picking, dude.
Yes.
For everybody that doesn't know what we're
Braves
talking about,
are obviously
we're talking about our baseball picks.
At least, yeah. At least it looks like the Nationals.
What was that? Doug is
what? Am I dragging?
Yes.
No, I'm just saying you're trying.
I'm looking at these curtains and I'm like, do I look like I'm on? I look like I'm on the couch.
No, you look like you're in a. You look like you're on a what do you call those? Like in Mexico, like one of those little tiki huts.
Cabana.
That's called the casting couch.
Yeah, the casting couch. Yeah, that's it.
I know nothing about that.
Sure, you don't.
I've heard of specific things. Hey, welcome back to the Cool Fireman Podcast. Douglas is enjoying himself a nice bottle. Adam is staring off into space, and Brian is salty tonight.
Yes, I'm a little sleepy. I'm taking some new meds, and I'm not sleeping too well. So if I got bagged,
no, I wouldn't even have noticed.
You got the Precious?
Dude, it's HIPAA. I'm just not going to.
You got the sugars?
It's not HIPAA if it's you telling us about your medical history.
Right.
Okay. But I didn't sign the release, so there's that. Okay.
Oh, well, there's
that. No release signed. All right. Welcome back. This is the Cool Fireman Podcast brought to you by Unkie Seasoning. Go to unkieseasoning.com and get yourself some Unkies. I just did. I got a couple of bottles of garlic and herb because I haven't had any for a while, and I've just been like, what the H? What the H? I had to use Danos today. Sorry for the shameless plug there. Probably wasn't. But anyway. And also the burn box, folks. We got a burn box coming soon.
Yep.
Boom, easy. I cannot. Dude, I have never been a big A, fire nerd, and or B, a collector of challenge coins, but I will tell you the last two that we've gotten have been so rad.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes me want to put up, I'm going to make one of those American flag, the ones that everybody has, the coin holders, for sure. What are you showing us right now?
A little shout out to the Cool Fireman Podcast in the burn box.
Oh, yeah, the little QR code, yep.
Yes, that's
dude, how rad is that? From our tiny little podcast to now we have a QR code in the burn box.
Yep.
Over 2,000 boxes are knowing about us every single month.
Every month.
Can I just say how much I loved last week's episode with Sam from FireTech and High-Vis, and I want to say thank you to the co-host that allowed me. I don't want to say the creativity, but the flexibility to be able to go and do that because it was so much fun to talk to Sam. And just to be able to connect to him, such an awesome business owner who really gets the fire service and is invested in it. He's not really, just saying that he's doing it. He's literally taking and volunteering his time, working a part-time shift. Who's running a company that's on 80% of fire trucks all around the country, and so he wants to make sure that if he's selling a product, he gets it. So shout out to him.
Yeah, just a humble, down-to-earth guy.
Oh man, so cool.
Seriously. So rad. And I mean, you said that he's flexible. I never saw him stretch once. So that is pretty.
Hit the rim shot. You got the button. Hit the button.
That was seriously impressive, Sam. I got to say, if you're listening to this, I'm impressed by your flexibility without stretching.
You remember what I said early on? You ever seen a cheetah stretch before he chases a gazelle?
I do want to say, if you liked last week's episode, you definitely need to make sure that your notifications are turned on for this podcast because we've got a couple more of those in the queue. And so we're not going to tell you when those are going to drop. You're just going to need to be ready for when they do. So you want to make sure you don't miss a single podcast, because we're just going to drop those whenever they are. So I want to go back to Unkie's. Matt must have dropped some.
But first, spill some beer.
But first, an accident. Oh gosh!
But first, a little snort.
So I want to go back
a little toot.
I want to go back to folks. We have fell off of the wagon right here.
Yeah.
I want to go back.
Well, I'm on it. On the sauce.
I want to go back to Adams and Unkie Seasoning as Matt rushes to go get more towels. Oh man. Just shout out to a couple of the different local vendors for Unkies. We've been plugging away, and so we've got some local folks who are restocking in the stores, and so just so much love to the local stores and our folks that are supporting Unkies, Burn Box, and all of our different sponsors. Thank you for doing that. So we've got other awesome things in the work with our sponsors as well.
Yeah, you're reading my mind, Brian. I was going to say we may have some news coming soon about potentially some more stuff down the line with the sponsors. So cross your fingers for it.
I was going to say, and who would have thought that just by saying, hey, if you want to connect with us, let us know, and if you want to be a sponsor, that people really would have followed up with that and done some things. In fact, we're finishing up some price sheets and everything else, and that's all to just grow this show. It's not to pay us.
Just 5 dudes for the people.
That's right. And if it does put a little in our pocket, then so be it. It'll be at the end after we just give back that much more to the podcast. So,
yep.
Matt, are you back? Are you back?
But first, a beer.
To make up for the one you spilled.
Still have a beer. Oh my gosh, it's going all over my laptop and my keyboard.
Let's hope the file saves. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh, it's still rolling. We're still good. We're good.
We did
messages.
We said thank you to the sponsors, so we can go from there.
Okay, good.
So
speaking of text message,
I don't have a phone. My phone got stolen 2 days ago, and so I went onto the iPhone website or whatever you do these days, and I found out that the new one is coming out on Friday.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I'm not going to go buy one just for a brand new one to come out, and so I'm dealing with no phone for a week, maybe even longer. But I've got my iPad.
Well, tell somebody to go get your Amazon package off the front porch.
Oh.
Tell somebody to go get your Amazon package off the front porch.
There's nobody here. Only my 5-year-old's here.
Well, you go get it and just do a live unboxing.
All right, hold on.
Oh, so what are we doing here?
Hey, I'm going to use some garlic and herb tomorrow.
We're all over the place. So he doesn't have. Well, it's not seasonings. You'll see what it is. I wanted to give him a little something since he was. As we go about our evening,
is it appropriate to open live?
Yes, it is.
So what's crazy?
Like anything on this show is inappropriate anyway.
It's just one.
What is it?
It's just one. I don't know.
So what's wild is the fact that you knew that was there at this moment.
Dude,
I get notifications through Amazon, so I looked and I seen a picture of it on the front porch. And this is my little token to you after you've been out in the wild woods in the woods. So the next time you get deployed, you can probably take it with you.
Really?
It's safe to watch, safe to unbox, and for the 5-year-old, anything should be gift bag. Yep, that's it.
What's this?
It's just a note. Probably nice card that goes with it.
Is that a love note? Is that what's supposed to help me in the darkness of the woods?
Sure.
It says, "I'm your juice box boy."
You can read it.
I'm your juice box boy. Dude, there's 3 pieces of paper in here.
There's a story behind it.
I don't know. I never.
From Adam to what's a Rolfie?
This is so
You
nuts.
are a delicious pizza pie. Wow, I didn't think of it. If you ever need a juice box, you come to me. I have a special one for you. Wow, that is very nice.
Hey, you're welcome, buddy.
Oh,
I feel like I'm ready? Wow, this podcast is really starting out
Yes.
in a special way.
It's going to segue into what you want to talk about.
So we're going to yes.
So it's a little thank you for doing your state of service, and you can take this with you the next time you get deployed.
This is a box within a box within a box.
Yes.
Okay.
It's all worth it.
Less packaging, more smiles.
Ass wipes. Less packaging, ass wipes.
Do I know you?
Okay, for everybody that can't see this podcast because you're listening on Apple Podcast or whatever else,
that's good.
Adam got me some Surf Snacks salmon jerky original pepper for my next time out in the woods.
Yes.
Just for when those MREs just ain't cutting it.
Yeah.
MREs.
So
to keep you a little more regular.
Nothing regular out there, dude.
Hey, for your state service.
That was worth it. That was
I went out for 2 weeks on the park fire. Ended up being the second largest fire in California history when I was up in Chico for 2 weeks. And so after that, we were kind of thinking that I would come on and just talk about my experience. I don't know what your guys' experience is with wildland fires, but mine prior to the last 4 weeks was pretty small. Just from I get experience just from RT-130 that we do every year. Do you guys do RT-130 training?
Well, you and I talked about it out when I was.
I think it might just be a California thing. But anyways, there's specific requirements that we have to do every year. We have to deploy a fake fire shelter. We got to do a hose lay. There's a couple things that we got to do every year. We have to drive the brush engine, off road and do all that kind of stuff. It's actually a lot of fun training. And but anyway, so that was kind of what my experience was limited to. And besides, going out as a probie fireman, so that was like 12 years ago, as a firefighter on a wildland fire. So I didn't really know what to expect, especially as a captain. And I got to tell you, it's actually a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of hard work. It'll take us hours to sit here and to explain to you guys everything that goes down, especially within like the ICS structure of an entire incident for a wildland. So California has IMTs. They're incident management teams that come in when a fire gets big enough, and that IMT has special. I hear like a background of like crickets. I thought somebody was trying to tell me something. Anyway, so when the IMT comes in, they have planning and logistics and operations and information officers. It's crazy. They have it all lined out. They come in and they just take over the incident. And CAL FIRE is typically in charge of that. I think they have like federal IMTs as well. But so when they come in, the incident commander basically, gives his intent, and they go through planning periods or planning meetings, and they come up with an IAP, an incident action plan. And there's a new IAP that comes out every night. Typically, it'll get dropped around like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And so usually we're not up at that time when we're off. And so you got to find out if you're on the IAP the next morning. So briefing starts at 0700. So we were usually wheels up from wherever we were staying on our off days at 05. And we get to the base camp around 5:45, and they have chow. And this chow is just a massive trailer, and I don't even know how to explain it, but it's all hot meals, and it's a lot of the California correction crews, the CCC crews that they get paid like $1 or $2 a day to be out there, and they shorten their sentences. Always like a bunch of nice guys. They don't talk much unless you talk to them, and they're there handing stuff out, and you can get anything so you get the hot plate, which is usually like powdered eggs. Sometimes it's sausage, sometimes it's ham, sometimes it's potatoes, whatever. And then a whole array of like cold items, cereal, milk, chocolate milk. They have granola, they have power bars, they have like yogurt, they have fruit. So like a whole box of like, strawberries and blueberries and stuff. And so you just go in this huge line, and depending on how early you get there depends on how long you're going to be waiting in line. And then, you break out from there, and the captains go to briefing at 0700 with the chiefs. And you basically kind of hear what the leader's intent is of the entire incident. You hear they have a professional meteorologist there, and he talks to you about the weather and what it was and what it's going to be and what it is today. And then they have a fire behavior guy that comes up, and he talks about what to expect from, hey, about 3 o'clock, you're going to see the wind change. We're going to start seeing downslope winds from your normal upslope winds in the morning. And this is what you should expect. So the fire that we were just on was so big that the plume, it was a sunny day out, but it just looked like overcast to us. But it was so big that it generated its own weather system. And we started getting huge booms of thunder and lightning. It was pretty crazy.
Wow.
And so then, of course, you're worried about A, getting hit by lightning, and B, also dry strikes. And so this particular incident that we got sent to was the IA, initial attack incident. So we were go. We were code 3 all the way to Big Bear, which is about an hour and a half. And then when we got there, they said, hey, kind of stand down because so there's a little town called Running Springs, and it's up in the top of the San Bernardino Mountains. And they had fire, 150-foot flame lengths coming up towards the Running Springs area. They thought they were going to lose it. They were telling people to get out immediately. Everybody's going to lose their home. Well, by God's grace, it rained. That weather pattern came in from the fire, and it rained and pretty much snuffed the fire out. So by the time we got there, they basically said, hey, we're going to bed you down and you'll start work tomorrow morning. And so that's what happened. And that next shift, and it's duties or operations of a wildland fire can vary very vastly. I mean, you could be 3 miles from the fire building contingency line, or you could be right at the head of the fire doing structure protection, cutting line, working with crews, or putting in wet lines, plumbing wet lines for laterals and such, so you can start putting out fire and doing mop up and stuff. So typically we get kind of plugged into mop up. Usually the fire has just blown through, or it's it's fairly close to it had just blowing through, and so we got to go through and just make sure it's wet and cold. And that just takes all day of just hiking. I mean, you hike miles and miles and miles and miles, full packed out with a tool, and you just kind of, it's a marathon, not a sprint. The one thing that I learned out there the most is just to take a deep breath. Like when other people are freaking out, you got to be able to just take a deep breath and think logically. There on the park fire about a month ago. There was this guy who was in charge of air ops, and so every time he'd go up there for the briefing in the morning, everybody was waiting because they want to see what he's going to say. And so he had his little tagline after he's all done saying, "Hey, we have 14 fixed air wings and 6 rotors and this, that, and the other. We're here to meet your objectives and operational objectives and all this stuff." At the very end, he'd always say, "Clear minds, full hearts, Team Park." And then like something after that, it was always different. So our favorite was "Can't Lose." So it was just amazing. And so everybody, you just see kind of people snickering around at briefing. And I thought that was so cool because it was almost like a little bit of a morale boost. You're there, you could have been there for 2 weeks or however long you've been there, and everybody kind of looked forward to this little piece during briefing, and everybody smiled and giggled. And so I thought that was pretty fun. But the funny thing is at the very end, I was going home and I Googled it. I was like, this has got to be from something. And sure enough, it's during a speech on Friday Night Lights, the movie Friday Night Lights. It's Clear Minds, Full Hearts, Team Park, or whatever they say. But anyways, that was pretty cool. But just the enormity of these fires. I mean, on this last fire, we had 2,000 firefighters one day. Wow. And the next operational briefing, there was 3,100 firefighters there.
Jeez.
And there was 3 very large fires going on in California. We had our fire, which was the line fire. Maybe 20, 30 miles away was the bridge fire, which is just as big, if not bigger. And then in my hometown, we had a huge wildland fire breakout that went over the hill into Riverside. But that lasted for days. In fact, they're still out there fighting it. So, So when California goes on drawdown, they take resources from kind of anywhere that they can. And anybody that's listening that doesn't really kind of understand our situation in California is we run by regions. And so each region, and so I'm not super well versed in this. I just know enough to get me in trouble, if you will. But they set them up in regions, and then, they basically number you out. So we're in region 1, so it's 1. So we are 1890 Charlie is our kind of strike team designator. But they'll just predetermine these strike teams. And so when they call region, they say, hey, we need this amount of strike teams. They say, hey, we're good to go. You got your order. And then they send you out. And typically it's like, hey, you're going to be leaving at 2 a.m. so that you're there at 5. But this last one I went on was initial attack. So we got out quick and we were code 3 all the way there. But you form up as a strike team, which is 5 engines, and a strike team leader, which is typically a chief. And then you go and you got your tasks. I mean, it's pretty amazing, man, what they have. It's a mini city. I wish I could just get a drone and just fly over it. You have trailer row, which is all your planning and your logistics, your training, because, there's people out there that want to promote and get certain certifications. And so you can open task books. And so those task books have certain criteria that you got to meet. So if you want to be like a firing boss, you gotta do it with somebody that's qualified for so many times, and you got to document that I was on this incident at this time, this night, and I did firing with this guy. And so you can basically get certifications through these fires. So there's that, like a whole training bureau. There's comms, which is huge. You guys are familiar with LCES, lookouts, communication, escape routes, and the safety zones. And I mean, communications is vital out there, and it's tough because, you're working off of Benedict's King radios, VHF frequencies. And so basically every morning they figure out what works best, what doesn't, but each division of the fire is going to have a different frequency for tactical. And then you're going to have a command channel, and then you're going to have air to ground, that you can talk to the helicopters, if you're in trouble or if you need a drop or something like that. So, I mean, I'm talking real fast and I'm talking kind of all over the place just because there's so much to talk about. And I just wanted to get as much out as I could. So maybe rewind and put it in half speed and you'll probably understand what I said. But just like, if I had to describe it with one word, it's just impressive. It's absolutely impressive what they can do with these large fires. I mean, you're talking firemen that are going down. We're hearing, I'd say typically like 2 or 3 firemen a shift would have some sort of emergency, whether it's a bee sting or a rock rolls down into their shin or they fall and hurt their shoulder, whatever it may be. And so we'd call it the 9 line. So you talk to your strike team leader calls communications. It's a full thing. And then communications dispatches the ambulance. If you need an air resource for a haul, they can do that. I mean, it's impressive. I mean, they have phone numbers for hospitals in the area. That's all dialed in. They have on standby paramedic teams that are line medics that you can do as overhead. And you could be out there for 21 days as overhead. And that's what these guys do. They're out there for 21 days, and they go out each day. And something happens, they're the line medic, and they can figure out whatever type of treatment needs to be done and how the patient's going to get out of there or whatnot. But it's just impressive. It's just seriously, I mean, the magnitude of these fires, and get mandatory evacuations. We can't mandatory evacuate anybody. We can tell them that it's mandatory, but we cannot physically kick them out of their house. Their house could be on fire, and if they choose to stay. Good luck. Then they choose to stay and try to fight for their house. But once they do leave on a mandatory evacuation, they ain't getting back in. And so they know that. And so they try to stay as long as they can. So now you've got life, not just property and environment that we're trying to battle. And it's just the magnitude. It just blows me away. I mean, I've been out there the last 3 weeks out of 4 experiencing this, and it could go so much worse than it does. And so I'm seriously impressed by how the management teams really take these fires, and mitigate them and the best we can. I mean, most of the time it's, hey, let it burn up to this point, and then defense structures in life. You know what I mean? But it's interesting with the weather and all the different variables. So it's a lot of fun because, you're out there with the boys under the stars at night. Sleeping sucks. You don't sleep on the line. You always got to have somebody awake patrolling when you're on the line. That's one of our 10 to 8 teams is we don't sleep on the fire line. But at the same time, you got to get some rest. Otherwise, you're just a puddle of poo, And so we take, we'll take turns patrolling or whatever. And it was cold, man. It was a cold front came in and it was in the 30s at night. And so it's chilly, even in that rig. You're sitting upright trying to get a few winks of sleep, but you just feel like trash the next day. But we're lucky enough that on our off days, we typically get to go to a hotel where a lot of the CAL FIRE guys don't. They bring in sleep trailers and they have them all. They're decked out with air conditioning, but you're still, in a trailer trying to sleep during the day. So it's brutal, and you're not eating the greatest food. It's they do the best they can, and it's not terrible. It could be worse. It could definitely be worse. But they put together these snack, we call them snack nasties. These big sacks of it's like 5 pounds of food, and it's from like beef jerky to Chex Mix. They'll throw some sort of kind of sandwich in there. Usually it's turkey or ham. And they'll, they'll put in like some mayonnaise and stuff. So they put in, those frozen burritos, what's I'm drawing a blank on the name of the brand, but
Cafe Ole?
Cafe Ole? No, but, something like that. Maybe. Where they're like frozen burritos that have been thawed. And so they give you a piece of tin foil and you wrap that sucker in the tin foil and you find some coals and you stick it in the coals and it heats up and it's freaking brilliant. It's freaking brilliant. It's really good.
Yeah, so a fire scene. It's going to have something hot.
Right, exactly. Either that or the engine cowling, one of the two, So I want
to unpack like that last 15 minutes right then, if I can.
That's nasty.
I love you, mean it, if I can, because I have some thoughts and I have some questions. Well, and
is it about the sack nasty?
No, it's not. But I do want to, Adam and Doug, if you guys got anything to interject with, by all means, as always, chime in. Especially you, Adam. I know.
I was curious what's his favorite job to do that's out there.
Okay, go ahead. Go with that one.
I mean, I would say that anybody would probably say fighting fire. When there's something that is.
But what does that look like, though? Fire. I mean,
so there's a multitude of things that could mean. So, you're on a flank of the fire, and you have 1 foot in the black and 1 foot in the green, and you're chasing fire and you're putting it out. There's that, there's that tactic, if you will.
Hand tools, hose line. I mean, what are we talking here? I mean,
so both. This is I'm talking. What I just talked about the last 15 minutes is enormous fire that has an incident management team. We're not necessarily going in and putting fire out that's in the grass, if you will.
Yeah, but I want to go back because when you and I were here in North Carolina and you and I were driving through, remember we talked about that. And I said, hey, how we fight a woods fire here is totally different than them there. So kind of put that in perspective, because I think that's why Adam is asking that question, and I'm wanting the extra information because the way that I would fight fire, a woods fire, is totally different than the way that you're going to fight fire.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Okay,
yeah. So, I think that you guys have got different landscape too. And,
sure.
and what you and I were talking about in North Carolina was more like IA, like fire just started and it's running, and we're going to try to anchor flank and pinch this thing, right? And we're going to get around it. So what that means is you're going to take the first couple engines are going to take the hot flank. So let's just say it's the left side of the left flank of the fire. You're going to call that. You're going to automatically become Division Alpha, and the first captain on scene is going to be in charge of those resources on Division Alpha, and you're going to be chasing that fire with 1.5-inch hose and doing a progressive hose lay. And so basically what happens is you pull the first 200 foot. Well, we have 200 foot pre-connects, and then once that's up, you turn that bail off, take the tip of the nozzle off, and you're extending with 1.5-inch single jacket Wildland hose. And that's what you continue to do. Once you hit the end of that 100-foot stick, you already got 100 foot reel out. and you clamp the hose and you let the water come out of the tip. Then you take the tip off, connect the new hose, put the new tip on, and you go. You got another 100 feet. And you're basically trying to catch that fire. So after that is done, then that's when like the crews will come in, or other, engine companies will come in with tools, and they got to cut a scratch line, which is usually like 2 to 4 feet. So that way it doesn't extend, right, laterally. And that's basically what you're doing, is you're doing perimeter control is what you're doing. And so that's kind of what we were talking about. I know that in North Carolina, and I mean really all up and down the eastern side of the country, from what I noticed, from Virginia to north to South Carolina, was a lot of tall trees and like forest, like timber, thick. I mean, come on. I mean,
briar patches.
That's going to be, in my opinion, unless the fire started, like let's just say it was a vehicle fire that extended into the brush. Now that's like the understory or the duff that's all on fire in there. You've got like pine needles and leaves and all that kind of stuff. That you're going to go for that. Like your guys' type of terrain and stuff is flat. It's tall trees, but they're pretty well limbed up, and so you don't have a lot of ladder fuels where that fire is going to get up into the canopy. That fire gets up in the canopy, it ain't nothing you're going to do on the ground. Absolutely not. That's going to be fixed wing and rotary wing all day long. And now you're just trying to make a box. You're going to make a box. You're going to make a box on the east, the west, and the north. And you're going to say, this is where I legitimately think that we're going to hold that fire to. Right.
And I think it goes back to as well, what we deal with here is a high humidity as opposed to a dry humidity there. And so the reason why our stuff doesn't get in the canopy like that is because of that humidity. Sure. We've had several fires where the humidity level dropped down into the 20s and such. And so it does get into the canopies. And just like you said, there is no stopping it. And so I think, Adam, I wanted to play off of that statement is, how do you fight fire? Because in that low humidity, that's not something we do. It is undercarriage stuff. We keep it, we do structural protection in low humidity when it gets underneath that undercarriage. And then we let a plow go in. That's something that you and I discussed, right? Like we're doing the easy work here. We're letting the guys with the Forest Service, they come in, they set a plow line, and then we go home and they spend 2 to 3 days doing mop up, and we're not even there, right?
And in my area, we got a great dismal swamp, but peat moss.
Yeah,
so it goes underground. Yeah, it'll pop up a mile down into the swamp. That's what we have to worry about.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And what you said, Brian, about the RH, in the 50s, 60s, 80s, where you guys live, a lot of the year, that can slow down a fire tremendously. And I got to see that on this last fire, the line fire, because we were down in the 20s and 30s, and then towards the last part of when I was there, got up into the 50s. And we were literally sitting there waiting for the fire to come to us. We could see it come over this ridge. And it was just too cold, and the RH was way too high for that fire to do anything, fast. It wasn't going to go fast at all.
So I just opened my weather app. It's 95% right here, right now.
The fire ain't going to go nowhere.
Well, we got a tropical storm, so it's thundering and lightning, and it's nasty. So I want to go back to the piece about the size. Again, before you came to North Carolina, you were on an extremely large fire. And let's talk about the perimeter of that fire.
Yeah.
What size was that? Like, I mean, you just so easily said it was like, it was like the second largest in California history. What does that look like?
So,
size-wise?
It was 400. It was north of 430,000 acres.
Yeah.
Was the whole fire. And that equates to somewhere, and there's going to be someone that's listening to this that's a fire wildland nerd that's going to call me out on this, but that's fine. It was somewhere north of 300 miles of perimeter of fire.
Jesus.
Crazy.
So
and it's not
facilities.
Thousands of feet of hose. And you saw the picture on Instagram. I literally, that was in base camp, that picture. I walked right by. I tried to take a picture, but I felt bad for the con crews that were rolling it all up. I didn't want to make them feel bad. And so I didn't get a picture of them. But yes, it's piles and piles and piles and piles of hose. Yeah.
So they take back and have to wash.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it goes back to the sentiment and I guess the cost, the conversation of what does that look like for the command structure? Obviously, there's one IC, probably at a statewide level, or when I say statewide level, but some incident commander, and then there's regional commands, and there's, what does that look like?
I mean, they're incident management teams. There's so many incident management teams within California, and they take it over. I mean, as far as yes, there are regional Cal chiefs that basically, I mean, we're talking about span of control, right? I mean, there's not one chief that's going to handle all we call them OES, so offices of emergency services. They have chiefs in the regions that are in charge of, making sure that their crews are ready to respond, that their engines are doing what they're supposed to be doing, and all this kind of stuff.
I guess what I was saying was on that one particular instance, I mean, you had your command, but then you look at that.
I know what you're asking. All right.
Yeah.
So
okay.
On a fire, it goes micro to large, right? So we have our strike team. There's tons of strike teams. There's Type 1 engines, there's Type 3 engines, there's dozers, there's hand crews, right? So that's the smallest. And then from there you have a division chief, all right? So a division chief takes care of a little bit of a patch, right? And then within the fire there's branches. So a branch has X amount of divisions, right? And then you don't really get much bigger. Correct me if I'm wrong, anybody out there that knows better than I do, but you don't really get much bigger than a branch. Okay, once you start getting bigger than a branch, that's when you start getting into the upper management of the incident. So it is broken up in that. So I was in branch 10, and I was in division Mike, and so they break those branches up into different divisions, and each division has its own chief and its own leader's intent. Hey, this is what we're going to do. And so just to expand a little bit more on briefing is very broad, from weather to fire behavior to information about how many firemen are on the scene, how many acres, all this kind of stuff. And then once they're all done with kind of their leader's intent and their information about what we're dealing with here on a whole, then they say, okay, now you're going to break out and you're going to go to your division breakouts. And so you go to whatever division you are, and that division chief is there, and he gives you his phone number, and he says, okay, boys and girls, and he does roll call. Dozer this, dozer that, dozer this, hand crew this, hand crew that, Charlie strike teams, Alpha strike teams. And he goes down his list, and then he just starts plugging you in. And he says, okay, we're going to meet at drop point 68. And everybody meets up there. Everybody drives up there because it takes usually an hour and a half, 2 hours to get up there. Damn. And then then that's when you go over your formal, hey, this is what you're going to be doing for the day. You got this. So we have a Venza. It's an app. It's a map app.
Yeah.
And so you'll download the maps into a Venza, and they'll say, you have this little strip right here. That's the micro part of these incidents, right?
Yeah.
You're in charge of mopping this up, and it's 1 mile. Have fun. You got 24 hours to make it cold from 0 to 100 feet out. And so that's what we do. We span out. We have laterals if it's already plumbed. If it's not plumbed, you got to put in wet line. You got to pump it with a pumping structure. You got to figure out where your water's coming from. So you got water tenders going back and forth, putting water into snap tanks. It's huge. It's just, it's immense. It's immense. I'm just sitting here talking about it and listening to myself talk out loud. It's unbelievable. Just how big,
that is a perfect point to tee up. You so easily said, hey, we do the I called it the SR 130 190, which you and I talked about. You called it, I think you said the 230. Was that right?
What's that?
The class, the certification class.
Well, we have S290, RT 130.
Okay. So we called it the 130 190. You called it the 230 290. And I don't know if that's just a state thing or whatever.
Sure.
But in North Carolina, that's what got you the ability to do the pack test, to go and be able to deploy nationwide. And I know for us, when I took the 130 190, I loved what my instructor told me. And again, being a rural county fire marshal, that was one of the things that we talked about was, woods fires and protection and stuff. But one of the whys behind that was they talked about IMT teams. It was, look, you're still going to have those calls. We kind of hit on it a couple weeks ago when we talked about active shooter, but you're still going to have those calls coming into your district. And because of how complex your incident is, that's why it's so important to bring these resources in. So real quickly, tell us what the benefit is. You talked about what it goes through, but what does that look like to get on one of those teams? And what I would just say is, local folks, talk to your local county ranger if you want to deploy, and get some training. But what is the benefit of getting on one of those teams? If these people are like, yes, sign me up, what does that look like? What's the benefit of nationally deploying?
Okay, so you're talking about like the incident management teams?
Yes.
Well, I mean, it's folks that love wildland fires. First of all,
sure.
So these guys. So I can't really speak to Cal Fire as much as because I haven't worked for the department. I know a lot of guys that work for Cal Fire, but this is a lot of what they do. I mean, Cal Fire came up with the ICS structure. I mean, for the whole country, they created the incident command system, and so they are good at it. And these guys that are in these incident management teams are just gurus that decided that they wanted to become a division chief. Then they wanted to be a branch chief. And then they probably got into planning or logistics or something like that. And they've moved their way up, all the way up to, an incident commander of an incident management team. And so I'll say this without impunity is it sometimes takes knowing somebody to get on one of those teams. It's not easy.
Yeah.
The spots are limited, I would imagine. I've never tried. I don't know that much about it. And if you do and you have a different opinion, please leave a comment on YouTube or Spotify and let us know. But I would imagine it's pretty damn hard to get on an incident management team. There are guys that are okay being out from June till October. Away from their house. It's typically a little bit older guys, so maybe their kids are a little bit older. I would not have any interest in doing that. 2 weeks is plenty for me. I'll tell you that right now. With an 11-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 6-year-old, and I've already missed enough. And so we're to the point where Kelsey's like, "Hey, maybe think about the next time you volunteer for one of these. Maybe make it a little bit longer time." But anyway, so. I don't know. I don't know the true answer to your question, but I would figure that they're fire buffs that love this stuff. They love the planning part of it. It's strategic. I mean, come on. I mean, these fires are massive. And so you got to come up with plans for each branch, each division. You got to have a leader's intent. This is what we want to do. This is our box. It's just on a larger level then.
And I think for our folks here that are in the Forest Service locally, they're able to deploy based off of their skills. So that's IMT and firefighters. So dozer operators, firefighters, they're deploying, and that's what they have. So there are almost always entry-level position in firefighter positions for our Forest Service. And what they do is that, I mean, just like side hustles, we've talked about this, they make a lot of their extra income or supplement their income, like how a lot of firefighters do overtime shifts. They'll go deploy 2 to 4 weeks and make bank on this stuff. And so that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's the reality of it. You go look at it and you go, why would I want to work for the Forest Service? These guys don't make jack. But the reality of it is when they deploy for those 2 to 4 weeks, they're making that overtime. So that's like added salary, right? Like that they can't add to the base, but you need to talk to somebody about. So if this is something you're interested in, go talk to someone in your local state resource office or whoever does wildland firefighting, and know that there are private companies too that are contracted for national response. And that's kind of what I was getting at. And then of course the IMT team stuff that you were talking about. Yeah. Doug, did you have a question before we wrap up? I know you were kind of quiet tonight.
No, we a couple of years ago we started a departmental IMT. So we have 15 people a shift, whatever it is, on IMT. That when we have large scale incidents, like we were supposed to have a presidential debate here in November, or maybe it was October. Anyway, at Virginia State University, right in Petersburg, locally, and of course there was a lot of planning going into that. So they got to get any large scale incident. They get every year the county fair. They do the county fair stuff, they get together for fire service related funerals, like anything. Our team will pull together and do that and organize it and everything. We've got some people on the state level also that go to that deploy to do those things, and the federal level. So yeah, I can't relate to anything Matt's saying right now. I mean, I've run brush fires here and there, but like nothing. Even our large brush fires don't compare. We've had 3-day incidents that don't compare anything to what you guys have to deal with out there. And I lived in Idaho and Colorado for probably 4.5, 5 years total. So I mean, I saw some of it. I saw I wasn't a fireman then, but I saw some of the smoke production and how even that smoke from the West Coast will come all the way to the East Coast. So I mean, I saw some of it for secondhand per se, but yeah, I can't relate. It's firsthand experience. I couldn't imagine.
Adam, I think it was you who I was talking to about this one time, where we were talking about a woods fire, and I said my forestry guy told me if you're using a hand tool and fighting a fire at the same time on a woods fire, you are doing it wrong. Right? I mean, in North Carolina or in the eastern part of the country, you are doing it wrong. Like,
yeah, we call forestry and they bring a dozer and like Brian said, they bring a dozer, they cut a line, and we clear up, and they're still dealing with stuff.
Yeah, forget that mess. I mean, you're doing structural protection, and in fact, the homeowner. I know y'all have seen my videos where I clear out the underbrush once a year. I mean, they'll be glad to let it burn. Like, look, just put a wet perimeter around it, and just let that underbrush burn. Everybody's happy.
I didn't even get into fuel mitigation, the millions of dollars that these communities spend we were talking about it while we were up on the line, and this forest was clean. It was clean. And whoever listens to this podcast, if there is somebody that is doing fuel mitigation in the San Bernardino Mountains up near like Big Bear Lake City, kudos to you guys, because we felt safe in there. We felt safe enough to roll in on a 4-wheel drive only dozer cut road and planted ourselves in the middle. I mean, if something were to happen behind us, it felt like it was clean enough to where we could get out of there safely. And so, I mean, kudos to those guys. And it's funny because I heard a rumor that the guys that had been doing that and spending years cleaning up that forest were, I mean, probably sort of proud of their work, but at the same time, they're like, oh my God, all that work we just did in the last 2 years for nothing. Nothing. Now it's just burning through. But I mean, to be honest with you, it's not for nothing, because that clean forest.
But think of how much worse it would have been.
Limbed up. Yeah. Oh, crazy. Yeah. So, I mean, they could almost be credited as saving that community. And if I'm going to go more local, back down to my city that I work for, I commend them. I really do. They've spent millions of dollars in the last few years doing fuel mitigation. They get crews out there to cut line around these houses. They expect the homeowners to have 100 feet of space in between their property line and the brush. And if they don't, they get a fine. And it's for that reason. It's for the good of the whole community and not just them. Stop being selfish. But they do a really good job, and they take it seriously, and they're willing to spend money on this kind of stuff. So I commend them.
That's awesome.
So it's just like Fire Country.
Just like that stupid show, Fire Country. Yes,
Fire.
Hey, all right. It's getting to be 48 minutes here. Let's do a little bit of housekeeping. First and foremost, I want to say, I know Brian has brought it up, and I keep saying that I want to do it, is the people that are trusting us with this podcast, thank you. I mean, from everybody, from West Broad to Burn Box, obviously you, Adam, and Unkies, and Billy from Jobtown Tools, and just all these guys, man. It's just been such a rad community, and I'll use that California term, rad. It has been super awesome. This podcast is going somewhere, and I love it, and it's because of your support. And so I wanted to say that. And then the second thing is I want to do a moment of silence. I know we've lost a couple of firefighters over the past week, and we have had 9/11 since the last podcast. And I know you guys had a reflection, but I had I don't know if you guys saw my Facebook post, but I had a very cool moment I was coming off the line. I got the goosebumps. I was coming off the line on 9/11, and my strike team leader said, "Hey, why don't we all get in a circle, and we're going to take our hats off, and we're going to give a moment of silence for our brothers and sisters and all the people that we lost on 9/11." And I was like, I mean, wind taken out, but the wind put right back in my sails, because it's been so long, man. 2001. It was 20 years ago. It feels like it was yesterday. And that is the true, God, I don't know the word, but the feeling of never forget. And so I put hashtag never forget. And if you're listening to this podcast and you don't get the feels that I do right now, that's okay. I won't judge you. But that was a tough day, and we don't ever forget. And so this is for all them and for the firefighters that we've lost over the past week. Goodness gracious. All right, well said. Well, unless you gentlemen, you fine gentlemen, have anything after that, we can maybe go ahead and wrap this up.
All I'll say is thank you guys. Drop a comment with what you like, what you don't like, and we'll see you next week.
I'm growing my mustache back.
Thank you.
Roll it, G.
Job shirt season means mustache season.
Roll it, Gigi. We'll have to do it twice.
Roll it, Gigi.
Before you leave, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and give these firemen a huge thumbs up. Also, make sure you check out thecoolfireman.com for more. Thanks!